Socratic wisdom is a quiet weapon. It wears no blade, yet it cuts through fear with questions. Socrates did not fear death as much as he feared the opinion of the many, and that fear sharpened every step he took. The paradox is this. The man who claimed to know nothing behaved as if he knew the most dangerous knowledge of all, the knowledge that the crowd can decide who lives or dies, who is wise or mad. In Athens, opinion was a living thing. The agora hummed with voices, debates, and the crisp edge of reputations. A citizen could be demoted from prestige by a single whispered rumor, or elevated to a ceremonial hero by the same force. To be seen by the many as wise was to be blessed with immunity from the knives of envy, and to be seen as impious or foolish was to invite exile or worse. Socrates walked that landscape like a man walking a tightrope over a canyon of public suspicion. He did not flee the crowd because he believed the crowd always knows better. He fled because the crowd can mistake wisdom for folly and polish folly into virtue with praise. The scene is almost cinematic, a philosopher in plain robes, inviting questions from a circle of eager listeners who smell a mystery in every sentence. He did not boast of cleverness. He offered a perpetual chain of questions, each one a mirror held up to another's certainty. The method was his shield and his bait. It drew admiration, yes, but it also earned the grudging respect of those who protect the comfortable surface of consensus. When the crowd approves, the air smells of safety. When it disapproves, the air tastes sharp like coin dropped on a stone floor. Socrates understood that air, and he preferred air that stung. His fear was not of violence alone, but of a subtler violence, the erasure of inquiry, the slow, creeping displacement of truth by consensus. The jury's eyes, the polis' voice. The chorus of educated and ignorant alike claimed to adjudicate morality, yet often adjudicated only the appearance of virtue. If he could be shown as impious, as a man who would corrupt the city's children with bad questions, then his blood would not be on the crowd's hands. It would be on his own for resisting the magnetism of approval. In this sense, Socrates did not fear death as much as the social verdict that could brand him as dangerous to the city's soul. He had two great teachers, in a way, the city's law and its fear. The law could condemn him to death, but fear could contaminate his reason beforehand. He chose to drink the cup rather than betray the method that had shaped his life. To question not for spectacle, but for truth. The court's sentence was a final chorus line that echoed his deepest instinct that to be truly alive is to risk being misunderstood, to move through the world as a point of friction against comfortable stories. Yet even as he faced the end, he did not pretend the end was meaningless. He argued that an examined life is not a protest against the crowd, but a refusal to become one more echo in its grand hall. The twist comes when we ask, what did Socrates fear that the crowd could do to him that force and grave could not undo? The fear was in essence epistemic and existential. The fear that conformity would hollow out the self, leaving behind a voice that simply repeats what others want to hear. He understood that popularity is a powerful anesthetic. It numbs the mind into agreement, and then it softens the heart into complicity. If virtue is the art of living well, then popularity is the art of living safely, which is a trap for the soul. Socrates believed that to live well must tolerate being misunderstood, and must push the line where the crowd's comfort ends and truth begins. Yet the deeper lesson is not merely about courage in the face of public verdict. It is about the ethics of influence. If the crowd can mold a man's reputation, it can mold a city's soul. Socrates did not seek to suppress opinion. He sought to discipline it, to ask it to justify itself, and to reveal when it masked fear as virtue. He did not despise the crowd. He insisted on a form of leadership that does not depend on being liked by everyone, but on keeping the flame of inquiry alive even when it flickers in the wind. The fear of popularity, in his view, was the fear of becoming a statue, beautiful to behold, yet forever still, forever missing the pulse of truth. This is not a call to abandon society or to celebrate rebellion for its own sake. It is a reminder that wisdom grows where dissent blooms and where error is allowed to speak its piece. Socrates did not aim to crush the crowd with certainty, to reveal where the crowd mistakes confidence for knowledge, where certainty hardens into dogma, where comfort replaces curiosity. In that sense, his fear of popular opinion was not a self-centered terror. It was a protection of philosophy's integrity. The stubborn insistence that truth must compete in the public arena, not be crowned by it. If we fast forward to our era, we find a familiar battlefield. Social signals travel faster than sunlight. A tweet, a thread, a headline, a trend can assign a verdict before a person has finished speaking. The temptation to mirror the crowd's mood is strong. It's easier to ride the tide than stand against it. And yet Socrates would ask us to weigh the price of that ease. What more valuable currency do we possess than the capacity to question, to doubt, to refine, and to endure the discomfort of being at odds with the majority? The question becomes not simply about what the crowd thinks of us, but what we think of the crowd when it speaks for our own conscience. The ancient philosopher's fear, then, becomes a mirror. It reflects the risk that every intellect faces when it steps into a public square. The risk that opinion will pretend to be wisdom while it is only applause. Socrates did not escape danger by quieting the crowd. He escaped danger by clarifying the terms of the crowd as judgment. He pressed for a standard beyond popularity, a standard of virtue that does not bow to convenience or to fear. The idea that justice might require standing alone, that truth might demand solitude, is not a romantic exception in the history of ideas. It is the endlessly repeated condition of anyone who refuses to surrender the self to the majority. And so, when we hear that Socrates feared popular opinion, it is not a confession of cowardice. It is a testament to the moral rigor of a life devoted to questions that do not die when the room goes quiet. It is the recognition that the fiercest battles for truth are not fought with fists, but with arguments. With the stubborn persistence of asking one more question after the crowd has defined the answer. He understood that the path to wisdom runs through the shadowed corridor where the crowd's echo fades and the uneasy voice of reason begins. In the end, the lesson lands like a quiet verdict. To live well is to tend to the health of your conscience more than to the fleeting health of public opinion. Socrates' fear was not fear of pain alone. It was fear of a life that never dared to interrogate its own premises. If we take that seriously, we begin to see how fragile virtue is, how easily it can be absorbed into the machinery of acceptance. And we also see something sturdier. The courage to question is a form of freedom, the kind that outlives the noise of the crowd and echoes in the choices we make when the room empties. So ask yourself with honesty, when the crowd speaks, what do you hear beyond the chorus? Do you hear your own reason testing every note? Or do you hear a chorus calling you to repeat what is already approved? Socrates did not pretend to erase fear, he transformed it into a compass. He used the fear of popularity as a reminder that the compass must point toward truth, not toward applause. If that is a trap, it is a trap worth stepping into again and again. Because the alternative is a life unexamined, a fate sealed by the very opinion that once promised safety. The ancient stones of Athens remember his steps, a slow, deliberate pace, a mind unafraid to wander, a heart unafraid to endure. He asks us to imagine a society where the crowd's praise is earned by honesty, not by evasive charm, where popularity is a consequence, not a compass. Until we reach that, Socrates remains not only a figure of the past, but a warning, a lighthouse flickering in the fog of our rational insecurities. He feared popularity not for himself alone, but for what a culture could become when its citizens stop listening to the deeper questions that make life meaningful. We end not with certainty, but with a challenge. Cultivate the nerve to question what others accept. Let the fear of being wrong be the spark that keeps your mind awake. If Socrates could face the jury with questions that unsettled them, perhaps we can face our own crowds with questions that might unsettle us. And if the crowd condemns us for asking, perhaps that condemnation is not a verdict on our worth, but a reminder of what we are defending: truth, conversation, the stubborn hope that we can learn together, even when the road is hard, even when the opinion is loud, even when the fear tries to pull us back